Hello and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Nina Guardian, sports editor Shane Brophy, and we're joined once more by Dennis Kelly. Lads, great to have you on. Shane, there's no better place to start than what's after happening with the Tipperary senior hurling job, because things have moved so fast in the past week. A week ago, Bonnar was still the Tipperary manager. That's no longer the case. His 3-year tenure was ended after 1 year following a review. Less than 24 hours later, Liam Cahill steps down as manager of Waterford hurling team, and then we've since found out that he's taken up the role as Tipperary senior hurling manager. A week is a long time in politics. A couple of days is pretty long in hurling, isn't it, Shane?
Yeah, I think my first paragraph in the paper this week, it was as swift as it was brutal what's happened over the last week. And like, whether the rights or wrongs of it on behalf of the Tipperary County Board, you can't say they haven't been I suppose determined in what they actually wanted to do. If they felt that Bonnar wasn't the right man, they made their decision to say, no, thanks Colin, for all you've done, but we just feel that you staying on wasn't best serving the long-term interests of Tipperary hurling. And like, I think it was, look, I think it was more of a coincidence that the Liam Cahill thing, but I can't not think that there was a little bit, I know Liam Cahill has denied that there was any and then there was no formal conversation while he was still Waterford manager up to last Friday morning, but I can't think there wasn't maybe back channel, maybe conversations, maybe to see was he definitely staying with Water. Maybe it were all worked out and that Liam became available. And look, once he did and he was interested, there was no point in hanging around, really. We have the first round of the county championship coming up this weekend, and it was if Liam Cahill was spotted at a few club grounds, people would be saying, God, is he interested? Is he the man? So it's better off to have gotten that out of the way now. And look, if he's spotted anywhere from Clough-Jordan down to Cahill this weekend, at least people know what he's at like. So look, I don't think it was a decision taken lightly, but I think it was a decision that had to be made. Look, it's come in for a lot of criticism, but the vast majority of it outside the county. I mean, Martin Breheny had a big cut at Tipp this morning, but I think, Shane or Dennis, I don't know if you'd agree, very, very few of Colum's contemporary teammates or within Tipperary have actually come out and voiced their support of him, or the voice that the Tipperary County Board got it wrong. And I think that's, for me, is the most interesting part.
Dennis, do you want to take that point up?
Yeah, look, it is. You feel sorry you have great sympathy for Colum, the way it happened. But I suppose in the long term, in the interest of Tipperary hurling, maybe we're better off to cut, make a clean cut and go with the new management. Liam Cahill has said he wasn't approached beforehand, but it just maybe worked out nicely for Tipperary this time round. There was murmurings in Waterford as well that maybe that management team were under pressure, so it might have worked out nicely for us. You have to have sympathy for Colin, but at the same time we have to think of the future, and I suppose a 3-year term now for Liam Cahill, it does look promising with Mikey Evans in beside him as well. They've worked well together. They've probably learned lessons from their stint in Waterford, like they were really motoring for the league this year. The wheels came off a little bit, and hopefully they'll have learned lessons from that, and then bring them back to Tipperary to help us in the coming year.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point in terms of what will be learned from that 3-year stint. But just in terms of some of the comments in the last couple of days, Cashel Kincormac's, who are Bonnar's club, they did say that it was completely unacceptable the way it happened. And Liam Cahill has since been on RT Radio, and he says, I want to be very clear that I received a phone call a short time after Colin Bonnar's exit from the Tipperary job. For me, second time around, it was very simple. The answer was yes, and it went from there. I can relate to why there would be anger out there. Colin took on the job at a really difficult time. There was a lot of injuries and retirements, and he was the man who put his hand up last year to take it on. I can understand why people would be angry that he wasn't given more time. I, for one, don't know what conversations Colin Bonnar had with the Tipperary County Board. Unfortunately, inter-county hurling is a results-driven business, and results last year in the Munster Championship might not have helped Colum's cause. What can I say? Only that I wish Colum all the best for the future, which of course we all do. But I suppose, yeah, it's hard to get away from it. We did talk about the backroom team. Was I totally convinced by that last year? I had to say I wasn't. We did make every excuse under the sun going through the year, Shane, because we we didn't want to be coming down hard without having given the management team an opportunity. But we are where we are now. And I think this time last year, you were probably hoping that it would be Liam Cahill taking over for 2022. In some ways, has this worked out quite well for him in the sense that because Tipperary lost 4 games out of 4 in the Munster Championship, not the most convincing league, players had gone away from the summer, that Tipperary in many ways are at the lowest possible ebb, but I still actually think there's an awful lot of talent there. So he's taken it over with expectations at the lowest level they've been in maybe 15 years.
I completely agree with that, but I think expectation levels, I think under any prospective new manager next year will be lower than there with Liam Cahill. I think people and I think rightly so. I think there has to be a certain level of expectation in Tipperary every year that I think he'll get an element of breathing space next year, but Tipperary have got to win matches in Munster next year. I know it's a dog eat dog. There's 4 other very good competitive counties in there, but I don't think Tipperary can ever be in a situation where you can write off a campaign. Would Kilkenny ever do that? Would Cork ever do that? I think there's definitely enough talent there. A lot of the younger brigade, even I was thinking, even going back to the likes of Brian Hogan's age, when Brian would have been a minor when Liam Cahill came in first. So you're talking anybody up to the age of 26 has worked under Liam Cahill, but probably going back to minor and 21. That's a lot of guys maybe that know what he's about. Definitely the younger brigade will know, okay, this guy and Brevens, they take no prisoners. We've got to be ready. And I think there probably will be, I'd say some of the older brigade will be let go, but some of them will have to stay. Because look, you look at the value of what I think a Noel McGrath would bring by staying there. He's only 31. You think, okay, he's been there since he was 17, 18, but he has so much to give. And you think in the modern sports science era, a guy maybe you were beginning to write off at 31, 32, 5 or 6 years ago, they can go 36, 37 now with the quality of sports science. So I wouldn't be writing off even any of them. I think Liam and Michael and whoever his selectors will be making an assessment, because definitely we need the younger guys really to be the ones to take this on, but you need some of that old guard there, the bit of advice, the bit of coolness, calmness in that dressing room, maybe in some of those big championship games will be so important as well.
Yeah, Dennis, what do you expect from Liam Cahill, and I suppose even more specifically Mikey Bevans, in terms of what he'll try and do with this team?
Yeah, well, I suppose they'll have a clean slate at the start, and they'll go through, I suppose, last year's panel, and they'll definitely the club championship. I think it'll be tasty too, that they'll be having a good look at that. There was fellas there maybe that put their hand up last year that didn't get the chance, and you'd be looking at them maybe getting a chance with these lads. I'd say that they won't be living on reputation either. You looked when they went to Waterford first. You had Morris, Shannon, and Noel Connors got the chop straight away, so they laid down their marker. Now I don't know will there be that will the same thing happen here, but I think Shane is right there. We do need a mix, and you see the likes of TJ Reid even at 35. I know he's an exception, but we have lads like that in Tipperary as well that he's still producing it at that age. So we do need a mix. We can't just cut everyone out because of their age. So I think I'm really looking forward to the club championship now. I think it's a great chance for lads to put their hand up. They know there's a new management coming through. And, I know Liam and Mikey, they won't rule anyone in or out. They'll give lads a fair chance. And you'll be hoping that'll help going forward. But I presume, style-wise, they had played a certain style in Waterford. We may have to adapt our style in Tipp. They'll be looking at, really, you're looking at beating Limerick or having a team, and a style that will be able to compete with Limerick, because they're the top dogs at the minute. So I suppose they'll be working on that from the word go. They're also looking at adding to their backroom team, I think, as regards S&C. I heard murmurings yesterday from someone down in the Clare camp. So we'll see does that come true. But, it's all positive so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even looking at Liam Cahill's last game as the under-20 manager back in 2019. And the score is that day, was a heavy enough victory over Cork, 5-17 to 1-18. And this was a Tipp team that was a goal machine. And even the year before as well, Cahill's underage teams had really, I think it was something like 47 goals in a number of seasons. I can't remember the exact. But even the scores that day for Tipperary, Billy Seymour scored 2-5, Jake Morris scored 8 points, Andrew Ormond 1-2, Jerome Cahill scored 1-1, and Cahill Burke scored a goal and Conor Bowe scored 1 point. It's interesting that not too many of that team has been brought through, and even the 2018 team the year before, we're probably only starting to see them come in now. So do you expect the development of that group to be fast-tracked now, Shane? Or is it might even get into the stage for where a couple of them, because they've missed out on years of experience at this stage, they might never actually reach their potential?
You can definitely think that there could be something in that, all right, but you'd like to think they would be... They sort of know what's coming. I think they'd be enthused by it. I think anybody who has an ambition to hurl for Tipperary next year will have an extra incentive to perform in the county championship. Look, you think they'd always be going out to give it their best for their club, but like there's a little bit more there for it too. I do think there's still too much. Look, you don't win those, particularly that 2019 under-20 championship. You don't win that as comfortably as Tipp did, maybe for a finish, without having some serious talent there. It's just about harnessing it in the right direction. Like you think a lot of these guys are probably only still a bit away from their prime. Mark Keogh showed in the Waterford game this year how he could be. Like Jake Morris, I think he's a match winner if there's a sort of a game plan set up maybe to get the best out of him. Like you look at the way Limerick set up, I suppose they're the best at the moment. Like Aaron Gillan doesn't do what he does by getting bad ball. He sort of knows when it comes in what he's going to do. You can imagine if Jake Morris is out in front of his man and has acres of space left and right, what he could do. Like I have no doubt that a Tipperary team under Cahill and Beavens and the selectors will evolve, and I think will improve pretty quickly. I think you, myself, and Shane, we were in Portlaoise even that night. While there was allowing for the weather, and like we saw maybe glimpses of passes through the line, just still didn't think, okay, there's something to be enthused about here, if you know what I mean. And then the match against Kilkenny, while they won it, it was a very, very poor standard of hurling. And in fairness, like while Kilkenny kicked on, look, they had Brian Cody. You knew they weren't going to be that poor. They were going to kick on, but geez, there was never anything through this. Maybe you could point to the Waterford and Limerick games where there were good performances, but you still never felt, even with 15-20 minutes to go, that Tipp were going to win. And I suppose, look, this has not been arrogant or anything, but like this is Tipperary hurling. You should be expecting any time you go out in the field to have a good chance of winning, and you're more hoping Tipp are going to win than being actually confident that throughout this year, even allowing for the difficulties Colm had to endure.
Yeah, and Dennis, just one final point on this. If like Liam Cahill took over for the 2020 season with Waterford and immediately took them to a Munster final and an All-Ireland final after 2 winless seasons. And I'm looking at the Tipperary team that won the All-Ireland in 2019 and seeing the players that are still involved. Now, maybe all won't start, but I'll just read through the players that will still be available to show that there will be a panel full of winners or players that are used to winning. So Brian Hogan will still be involved, Cahill Barrett, Barry Heffernan, Ronan Maher, Seamus Kennedy, Noel McGrath, Michael Breen, Dan McCormick, maybe Bubbles O'Dwyer will be back, maybe Niall O'Mara will be back, Jason Ford, hopefully Seamus Callanan, John McGrath, assuming he comes back from injured, Mark Keogh, Willie Connors, again injury, Jake Morris, Ger Brown. There is a huge amount of players who have won an All-Ireland field. They were all on the field to play in the 2019 All-Ireland at different stages. So Tipperary should have a team that are backboned by lads who know how to get it done.
Yeah, exactly. Look, with massive talent in Tipperary, like you're right, they haven't come true. But it's early days yet now, and you'll be hoping that when the boys get their management team finalised, they get their S&C up and running, and they get an early start, and they get whoever they think or see fit onto their panel, and have a nice sizable panel to start with, and work from there, and they can make their cuts then as they go along. But there is huge talent. There's a backbone there that a lot of counties would kill for. So that's a good starting point, and then you start adding in the guys that maybe haven't got a chance yet into your panel, and you go from there. Like their mantra, Lima and Mikey's mantra, is really built around work rate and supporting the man in possession, and as you said already, goal getting. So all those things are that's what we'll be looking for in Tipp, and like we probably didn't. We didn't see a style, but I'd say the style will be very visible for anyone looking in. once this team starts next year, whereas this year it was a mix between long and short, and sometimes the players maybe they weren't sure which to do. Whereas I think under the tutelage of Liam and Mikey, you'll be very sure of what style they're playing, and the players will know exactly what their role.
Yeah, and Shane, a final word on this. Do you have optimism for 2023, whereas you mightn't have had it a week ago?
Yeah, I do. And look at this. I don't like. I hated saying that about him. I was like, geez, I have too much respect for Colin and what he did as a player, and like taking it on. I didn't see the thing improving. I just think there was talk of a number of players maybe not committing next year, and like that would only make the thing worse. And then maybe you have lads coming in that are filling holes that maybe aren't good enough just because somebody has to come in and fill them. Whereas now I think anybody that's enthused about Tipperary hurling will be in there this year. Do you tell me if Liam Cahill had been in last year that Brian O'Meara and Kieran Connolly would have gone to America? I'm not so sure they would have. I just think, if there's a leader at the top there that commands respect, they will make you make decisions that you mightn't have, that make you change your mind. Like I would think, I would have been thought that, look, Jerome Cahill decided a couple of years ago that intercounty hurling wasn't for him, but if there's one or two people that have maybe have the ability to twist his arm, there would be Michael Brevens and Liam Cahill to come back. I'm not convinced he'll ever change his mind, but like that guy is an incredible player for Killerwan and for Tipp underage. Like you have like your Brian O'Meara, you have Kieran Connolly. You think you have to have a good campaign. Like, okay, you might have John McGrath back for the championship next year. Barry Heffernan, probably unlikely after the knee injury. He's out. The ACL has ruptured, so he's more or less gone for the next 9 to 12 months. But I'd be a big fan of Andrew Ormond. Like, there's going to be guys in this club championship, and they would have played maybe the last few years underage. Max Hackett, the Devon Ryans, maybe the Johnny Campions we saw it under 20 this year. Like they're probably guys that maybe we didn't see enough of. Like we saw Craig Morgan play very well this year, probably in a poor team. Conor Bowe showed up very well against Waterford before he had that hand injury as well. So Mark Keogh against Waterford, and we saw he gets into dangerous positions but didn't finish chances. I'd like to think if he goes back in with Bevens and Cal, he'll only come on from that as well. So I think Tipperary will be for first day out next year. I think is it away to Clare if they go by the same schedule of championship matches. I think we're away to Clare first up next year. Like that, we'll be primed and ready, and I think we'll see a better Tipperary team in 2023.
Yeah, River Power says Stapleton thinks he can bring in a whole underage team just like that. Come on. No, I'd never actually said that. And I was talking about the backbone of an experienced team is already there. He does make another point saying Bubbles and the McGraths will be dropped, I'd say, not Cahill types. Breen, despite not stepping up last year, might be a player that Cahill will be excited by because of his speed and ability to carry. So that's his opinion on it anyway. I'm sure everyone has their own take on it.
I don't think I just think I think he won't keep all the experienced guys, but he'll keep some. Because look, he kept Kevin Moore in Watford for a couple of years, and you would have thought Cahill knows the value of experience. He will identify maybe some of them, and if he senses they still have value, that he'll keep them. There's no way. He won't get rid of them all. There's no doubt.
Yeah. James Kennedy says pure disgrace the way Colin Bonnar was treated. What happened to all the younger lads under 21 that won before gone? So let's talk about the All-Ireland final last weekend, Dennis. What were your thoughts on it? Limerick 131, Kilkenny 226. Just a couple of points in it for a finish, but Limerick have won the 3 in a row.
Yeah, Limerick they're an awesome team. Like you think they won it without Cian Lynch, who was probably one of the hurlers best hurlers in Ireland. So, I was at the game and it was very interesting. I was looking from the Devon stand. The seat might have been brilliant, but I had a good view of the Limerick forwards, and it was unreal, the movement of them, and it was a sight to behold. But also TJ Reid's performance was something for the ages there. I really, really enjoyed it. Been there to see him. You might on TV. I don't know. They spoke about him playing well too, but to see him in the flesh and dictating and kind of getting in the game for the first half. And you knew always if they were kind of hung in there, they were going to be thereabouts. And had they got one more ball up, they could have snuck in another goal. They probably maybe there was one stage there where Mullen had a ball down the wing and Richie Hogan was inside, and if he had popped it in, it was a certain score and it dropped short. And little things like that, with such small margins there. But look at that, Limerick overall were value for their win. They're a serious outfit.
Yeah, Grode Hegarty is something else, isn't he, Shane?
Stop, sure. He's nearly unmarkable when he's on that sort of form. And I just think it's like he took on shots. If you were a coach, you'd nearly be rating him for why are you taking on shots from there. But I think he just said something a lot about the Limerick setup. Like they empower the players to know when to take the right option, and they trust their ability. And I think the last score in the 71st minute for what was it, inside his own 65, did he shug off Blanchfield and bang over the bar? He just engine work rate. He's just an incredible player, and like he's arrogant, but there's a good arrogance about him. He knows he's good, and when you have a player he knows is that good, it's almost impossible to stop him.
Yeah, and Kilkenny have come an awful long way in one season, to be fair, Dennis, haven't they?
They've come a huge way. I suppose the one thing that stood out was maybe lack of physicality in places like Kilkenny had a very good year, but like he was blown away the other day in the final. He's not there yet. Like young Blanchfield as well, he's a fine hurler, but you see how he was thrown off like a rag doll there for that last score. So they have a bit to come yet. And there's talk now maybe that Cody mightn't stick around, but I don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll probably know by the end of the week whether he does or he doesn't. So if he moves away, it'll be interesting to see who fills the hot seat down there. But look, he really did a good job. If you had to get a win in that All-Ireland, it would have been probably his greatest ever feat. And people are talking about him being manager of the year, even though they were beaten, because it was some performance. I'd say most other counties wouldn't have lived with that Limerick performance last Sunday.
Yeah, you'd have to give him huge credit for hanging in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But then you'd think, God, if they'd only made a change, tried somebody on Hegarty early on, like as well as Deegan played, and we saw maybe it's just one moment in time that catch Blanchfield got at the very end. Like maybe if he'd thrown something different on Hegarty early on, maybe earlier than he did, Blanchfield had physically. He's not as strong as Hegarty, but he has tallness to go with him, and he's a left-handed hurler. So you know the way. So if you throw something different at a guy, you maybe will slow him down a small bit, and you could see that little bit of frustration on the side, particularly with Martin Comerford and Cody had the arms out, and you think Comerford was really trying to get the message to him to make a couple of switches. And look, in fairness, their substituents came on, like Walter Walsh was incredible when he came on. John Donnelly got a great point. Blanchfield came on, was very, very good. Richie Hogan. So, look, in fairness, their subs all came on, but just maybe just tactically, I suppose, with Hegarty and with Morrissey, that they sort of stuck to their pre-arranged plan for a bit too long. And look, the murmurings out of Kilkenny are that this could be it. Like, I'm surprised if it's going to happen as quick as that, but maybe this is, if it is, maybe probably Cody is doing it for the best, because it gives probably an incoming manager or gives them a chance to develop a bit of a process. You can't be so certain that he wouldn't hang around, but I don't know. It'll be strange if he's not been there on the sideline next year. He's like part of the furniture. Like, you nearly miss him, like, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things there. Number one, I'd say that ball that David Blanchfield caught over Grode Hegarty, that was in injury time at the end of the game. And I'd say Hegarty was out on his feet at that stage. So I'd love to know if that would have happened at the start of the game.
Yeah.
At the same time, Blanchfield obviously is a promising player. Number two, Kilkenny pushing so far up on the puckouts just ensured that Limerick were able to do that sort of spine, and then everyone burst out into space puckouts. So they kind of threw their own half back line to the Wolves. The other thing is, I'd be shocked if Cody left. I mean, and the other thing is these rumours going around. I can't imagine he'd have been confiding in people that would, kind of pass the word on so that this rumor would spread. I'd be very, very surprised if that happened. But
I think I thought it was an interesting thing. I think was I was reading last week that is it this December. There's a lot of the older brigade of Kilkenny County Board are coming to the end of their tenure, and then maybe he'll be losing an awful lot of his support base within the county board. I don't know whether there's anything in that, but maybe it's a coincidence. I'm not so. Look, he generally they usually leave it till September, October before they confirm he's staying on for another year. So maybe it's just mere speculation, like so.
Okay, look, we'll dive into the Tipperary Senior Club Championship, which is going on this weekend. We'll start off in Group 1, Dennis. Killarwan are going to meet McCarthy Burris, and Clonolty are up against Nina. How do you see that? Obviously, Nina won the North Championship in great circumstances, come from behind, even with 14 men. Now, Barry Heffernan, he's out with the ACL. That's a huge blow to both his club and Tipperary heading into next season. But how would you see these two games going?
Yeah, sure. Look at the Killarwan, McCarthy one. I think it'll be tight enough. They've played previous years, and there was nothing in it. Killarwan have been moving nicely enough. They had a good second half against Killadangan in the North Championship, and took it extra time, but it wasn't enough. But they have great experience in their team. And then you have the younger guns coming from McCarthy, they've won an under 2021 championship last year, and they'll be bringing on a lot of those lads. Just I suppose on the injury front, I think their goalie Reece Shelley got a knock the other night, so he'd be a big loss if he's out for them. And they're trained by Willie Ryan to Ivera as well, so Willie's got a great kick out of them last year. So I'd say it'll be a tight game. You probably have to give Killarwan a slight favourite tag in that one. But it could go either way. And the other one, you have Nina. As you said, Barry is a big loss for Nina. But they hurled well without him when they, in the second half of that North final. So they'll be really buoyed up from that win. And the Clonolty won their Division 2, but in the West. But I suppose the competition maybe isn't as fierce over there. But again, a very even game, and they've played each other a lot down through the years, and it's gone both ways. So it's very hard to call this one. It's fairly even. I suppose maybe Nina, if they had Barry Heffernan, you'd be going for them. But it's even a draw in this one might be something that you could expect.
Shane, will you actually even outline a bit the quality of those young players that Mike Harkey have?
Yeah, sure. Look, they've been built like they've been bringing through a good couple of underage teams over the last 4 or 5 years. Like they got to a minor final in 2017 or 2018 where they lost to Ross Gray. I can't remember which year it was. Like so, they've been constantly building. I think they've probably had a couple of players, maybe more like Kyle Shelley, Max Hackett, like Reece Shelley in the goals. I think he could be one that would be on the Tipp management's radar if they look to shake things up between Barry and Brian Hogan. Like so, I think it's a big year for Mike Harkey. I think the last 2 years they've been very, very competitive in the group stages without having much luck. I think they were in a group where they last year with Killarwan and Lockmore. I think they lost their 3 games last year by I think they were -8 of a score difference. Like just shows you how close they were to the challengers. I think this is a game. I think if Mike Harkey want to get out of the group, they're going to have to win this game. I give them a chance. I give Killarwan. They were slow burners last year, and they got better as the year goes on. But they'll have to find a little bit more. I thought it all depends. Like they need Niall O'Mara at centre back, but they also need Niall O'Mara in the forward line. And we saw that in the game against Killadangan. Like when he wasn't in the forward line, the first half they were poor. When they brought him up in the second half, he turned the game. Like so, what way are they going to approach it? They should have Willie Cleary back this week. Like he was. I thought he was surprisingly effective in the forward line last year, and he was very good in the freeze. So this will be tight. I called a draw on this one. For when I was previewing it. Clonolty Nina, I think the fact that Barry Heffernan is out, Conor McCarthy will be suspended, pending maybe, I'm not sure whether they appeal that or not. I just think the loss of those 2 guys could be a bit severe. I'm not sure. I know Dara Quinn hurt a hamstring in the semi-final against Templederry, so whether he'd be right to go. I think if he is, he could be their centre back going forward. I suppose these group matches will give Nina a chance maybe to readjust their half back line now that they know they won't have Barry for the rest of the year. They're guaranteed a preliminary quarter final anyway. So the pressure probably is off Nina slightly. So on that basis, I probably give the nod to Clonolty, where Clonolty, Nina probably just have, particularly in their back line, probably just have maybe too many questions at the moment, just how they're going to readjust without those couple of lads for this game.
Do you think the loss of Timmy Hammersley going to Ballyboden will be felt by Clonolty as the year goes on?
I think it has to, because look, he's been so consistent for 10, 15 years. But look, I think they've adjusted nicely. They had a very, very solid league. They got to the Division 1 league final. Like they have the likes of Jack Ryan, Stephen Kerncombe. I'm not sure whether Cahill Burke is back from injury yet. So like I think that, and like I think Dylan Quirk had a very good West final up in the forward line. So I think they have enough to adjust, and I actually think it might serve Clonolty better in the long term, Timmy not being there, because I think an awful lot fell on Timmy's shoulders, and while he gladly did it, I think it absolved an awful lot of responsibility of other players for a couple of years, whereas now everybody's going to have to put their shoulder to the wheel in that forward line. Yeah,
so Group 2 then, Tipperary are against Drummond and Borrislee are against Thurles Sarsfields, which is a tasty enough group there. I suppose starting off with the Tipperary one against Drummond. Drummond should be fairly burned after losing that mid-final to JK Brackens, Dennis. They'll be looking to get the show back on the road.
Yeah, definitely. Look, they were very disappointed with that loss. And, it was one probably they expected from the outset to win. And, different things went against them. I suppose there was, it's Tipperary then, on the other hand, they had a bad beating to Nina, but maybe that result wasn't, a true reflection, because I think there was weddings and different things going on up there. So, this one will be a really crunch one, and, you want to win your first game if you can at all, because if you're off to a losing start, like you're facing into the losers of Thurles and Borris isn't exactly appetizing either. So, whoever loses this game, it's going to be a tough one again the next day out. So I think both clubs will be going hammer and tongs for this one. And it is hard to call, but you'd probably have to favour Drum slightly in this one. Tipperary still have to be proven. I know Shawnee Ryan on his day, he could beat a team on his own there. And he's one of the lads I'd love to see in on Liam Cahill's panel, because he had a really good year last year, but probably didn't get the recognition he deserved. But, if they can get a handle on him, I think Drum might have a little bit too much, and they'll be smarting from that defeat to Brackens, and I think they'll come out all guns blazing. And the other one, Sars and Borris Elite, is very hard to call. I suppose Paddy at club level is even a bigger loss than he was at county level to Sarsfield. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out of that. Borris, they didn't have a really good North Championship either. They were disappointed with their defeat to Rivera. So they'll be looking to come out fighting as well. So this one is a very even one, and it would be really hard to call. Again, both clubs would be really wanting that win, because you go into your next game under real pressure if you don't get something out of the first game.
Yeah, Shane, like Tipperary were beaten heavily in the North semi-final by Nina, 4-18 to 13 points. Like we've already said, Drum lost their final. Borrislee disappointing. No Thurles as well. No one won their division. So this is a bit of a group of death vibe, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's like you're guaranteed, and you're guaranteed. Like, if you're no disrespect to Tipperary, but if you're thinking championship contenders start of the year, Sars, Borrislee, Drum, one of them won't get to the knockout stages. Like, that's how dog eat dog this group is going to be, and I think Tipperary are going to be seriously competitive. I think, remember last year, I think Tipperary lost by 25 points to Borrislee in a North quarter final, and they still won the Orion Championship pulling up. I just think that maybe they had the bad game with the dirty diesel out of their system in Nina. And look, they will be coming into this game with no pressure. Nobody will expect Tipperary to win any of their 3 games, which makes them very dangerous. As I say, they have in forward Sean Ryan, Adrian Ryan, Aina Murray. They have forwards to score with anyone. It's whether they can keep the score. It's at the other end of the field. And look, we saw it last year when they kept bubble quiet in an Orion final. I think this is a very dangerous game for Drum now. If they're not tuned in for this, I think they could get turned over, because look, they had that mid-final one, and they had enough chances to win that game, and they just didn't get the job done. I think they're an evolving squad, Drum. I think they needed to bring through some from fresh blood this year, and I think they have. But still, Shamie Callan and Johnny Ryan still important. Be interesting to see if I think David Collins played for their intermediates last Sunday. It'd be interesting to see if he's pulled off that squad and go straight into their senior team. I think if Drum are going for a senior county championship, I think he's got to come into their senior team straight away. And because like if they don't take full points from Friday night against Tipperary, I think they'll be under pressure. And then the other game, as Dennis says, very, very tight to call. Both coming in probably a little sore after their one and done defeats in the divisions. Interesting to see what Borrisley do. I think that you could definitely see the Shane O'Neill imprint the last day, short puck outs, trying to be more precise, working the ball up the field. But then I was thinking, it was probably the two quietest games the two Kenny brothers ever had. What did they thrive on? Direct ball into the forward line. So it's marrying those two styles. And Dennis' son, Jerry Kelly, as well, likes the high ball too. So it's marrying those two styles. It'll be interesting. And I think they could be a bit vulnerable this year if they don't. They have to get that style in place quickly, or they could be out of the championship. I just think it'd be interesting to see how they've worked things over the last few weeks, Borrisley.
Yeah, well, I saw the two teams play in a league match across from the race course a couple of months ago. And like you mentioned there, Jerry had a great game that day. Billy McCarthy was brilliant for Thurles that day. And I wonder, can he get back up to the level where he might feature again with in
and he didn't play in that mid-game against Upperchurch. So hopefully you'd love to see Billy getting a full campaign. Maybe his knee is too badly compromised. He'll never get back to inter-county level. But you'd love to see him having a good campaign to see if it was possible.
Yeah, just the way he was moving that day, I was thinking, geez, he's got an awful lot to offer anyway. But Dennis, do you think Borrisley, in terms of like trying this new system under Shane O'Neill and John Fitzgerald, now Shane O'Neill wasn't actually on the sideline that day for the league game against Thurles. I'm sure he had other commitments that day, but John was on the line. Do you see Borrisley abandoning any of that, or just the fact that there's so many sort of smaller size players, and Eddie Ryan, Kevin Maher, JD Devaney, there's a lot of smaller frame players, so they do need to mix it up if they want to bring those in and not just focus on pumping it long on the Kennys and Jerry. Yeah,
exactly. Look, it has to be a mix, and I suppose going back to the All-Ireland, that was the one, I suppose, thing. It was too maybe Route 1 and, maybe predictable at times when they played Ballyhale in Croke Park. So that's, I suppose, since then they've been trying to mix it up a little bit. But this year, they've really, the boys that came in, Shane and John, they've focused on it. Now Mikey Beavens is giving a hand out as well. So really, they're star-studded on the sidelines. So we hope they'll have no excuses on the pitch, because they're getting the best tutelage. So, a mix is definitely needed. You can't go just one route or one game plan. You have to have that. So you'll be hoping that'll come to fruition. They got a nice break since the Toomevara match, and they've got, a few nice challenge matches in and been moving fairly okay. So, they'll be hoping to bring it to the table on Saturday evening. But again, Sayers are probably doing the same thing. They were disappointed to their loss to Upperchurch, and I know they hadn't maybe a full hand that evening, but again, both sides will really be going at this, because 2 losses on the trot, and suddenly your people start scratching their heads and wondering what's going on.
Yeah. So Group 3 then, Upperchurch Drumbanner against Holy Cross Ballycahill and Mullinahone against Toomevara. They met last year in the championship. Shane, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the Mullinahone Toom game is fascinating, because I think like Toomevara, I don't remind Dennis, they really messed up last year against Mullinahone. Like they had 1.5 feet in the quarterfinals going into that game, and by the time it was over, they were knocked out. Mullinahone deservedly won that game. I thought Toom didn't look tuned in from the word go. Maybe they thought they were qualified and it just didn't perform, and Mullinahone took them apart. I think I was impressed with what I saw from Toom in the North Championship. Very good win over Borrisley. Unlucky to lose narrowly against Killadangan, and that was without Mark McCarthy and Willie Coffey. So I'm not sure whether they're back for this weekend. But they got a great go out of their subs bench. I think Adam Hall coming off the bench, like for Toom to have impact off the bench now. I think that was another aspect they needed to find this year. So I think it's a big year for Toom. I think the fact that they're playing Mullinahone first is ideal for them, because they won't lack motivation. They know, while Mullinahone deservedly won last year, that Toom didn't show their best. So I think they'll be primed. I think Toom will win this one. I think Upperchurch and Holy Cross, I think, is a tighter one, but I don't think Brian O'Mara is back from America yet, and if that's the case, I think it's enough to swing it in Upper Church direction. I know Liam Dunphy is in with Upper Church this year. I think James McGrath, he's in there too, is he, with your old clubmate? Like, so I think it looks like Upper Church are going all in now, and I think they will feel they got to a quarter final last year. Bit of luck went their way getting out of the group. I think they will fancy the chances. A very open group, but I think I would think Tumivara and Upper Church are probably my two picks to get out of the group at this stage.
Yeah, Dennis?
Yeah, I probably have to go along with that. Like, Tuam have, if you were looking for a match, this is the match to be looking for, because, I'd say there's 12 months there where they're having nightmares over Mullinahone and that defeat. They could have even, taken a defeat and not been defeated too much, and they would have gone through. So it's really something that, I'd say is niggling away at the boys for the last 2 months. And they look to have under the new manager there, they look to have a good spine, and they have a good setup, and they really, were impressive against Borsley, and were in hard luck against Kilkenny, lost up by 4 or 5 points. So I'd be giving them the nod. But again, against Mullinahone, you can take nothing for granted. Like Paul Curran and Owen Kelly keep producing on the biggest stage. They're unbelievable for their club. And they have a few young lads coming through as well. I think they were beaten in the county under 21 final to McCarthy last year. So they'll have some new blood coming through as well. So there won't be a walkover by any means. And in the other one, I suppose Brian O'Meara is a big loss. Wally Cross need everyone, to be competitive. And again, there won't be much in this one, but I'd see maybe Upper Church sneaking through by a couple of points, in that game.
Yeah, so Group 4 then, Kildangan against Lockmore. That's a fixture we've seen several times in recent years, including that county final, that brilliant game, Shane. And then also Aero Anacarty up against the mid-champions, JK Brackens.
Yeah, sure, it's a great game to start the championship. Friday night, repeat of 2020 final, the last two champions going head-to-head. But I think there are definitely two teams that we're not certain about this year. I suppose you look at Lockmore, John McGrath is out, their talisman. They've had a lot of key players in the last 2 years, but I suppose he's doing the one that, particularly at the forward end, who's driven the show. So look, he's a big loss. Ed Connolly's out. Kieran Connolly, I'm not sure whether he's back from America yet. So look, they're a bit vulnerable. There's one club that will not make an excuse out of players who aren't there. It's Lockmore. So I think they'll still be as competitive as ever. They'll adjust. They'll find. You just don't know what they could say. Okay, we're down, John. We'll put Brian in the forwards. They'll think outside the box if they feel that their forward line is not as strong. Look, they didn't have Noel against Drum and Inch in the mid a few weeks ago. He was suspended, and it took, I think, Drum until the last 10 minutes to put them away. So you think Lockmore will be even stronger now. So the Kildangan be sore enough now after that North final defeat. They played well for a lot of that game, but I suppose the relentlessness of Nina wore them down, and they have, in fairness to them, they don't lose an awful lot of games over the last few years. So I think there'll be a big reaction out of them. I think Sean Hayes was carrying a bit of a hamstring after that Nina game, so whether he'll be fit to go is another thing. I think they'll get better as the year goes on. Darragh Flannery will be back. I think they're expecting maybe Willie Connors, maybe second or third game in the group stage, maybe to make an appearance. So I think they'll be getting stronger as the year goes on. This one's a hard one to call, for both are weak down players. I fancy a draw on this one. I think the other one, Bracken's going in as favourites. They're mid-champions, but that makes them very vulnerable. They're dealing with coming in with a bit of expectation now, and if there's one club that'll look to burst their bubble, it'll be Anacarty. And Anacarty will be looking at this fixture thinking, if we can win this one, geez, we're off. And then if we can get a win over the other two, we're in a quarter-finals. I say Anacarty have been lining up this fixture for months. I wouldn't be surprised if Anacarty snuck this one. I think you're never at your most vulnerable, particularly as a team who wouldn't be used to winning championships like Brackens did. But if Brackens come through it, I think you could definitely put them in the championship contender mould, because they'll psychologically have dealt with winning that mid-championship very well.
Yeah, Dennis, how do you see the opening round of this group going?
Yeah, well, in the Brackens and Anacarty game, like, there won't be much in it, but I just think the Brackens will get great confidence from that mid-championship. While they'll be vulnerable, I think they won't take their eye off the ball. Talking to a few of the lads in there, they're going home for this one now as well. But Anacarty are very similar to Lockmore in the way they play. You'd never, no matter who they have out or whatever players they have, they're very hard to beat. So there won't be anything in this one. But I think the Brackens might maybe a couple of points. In the other one, then look at the both completion. Again, Lockmore, you write them off at your peril. They'll come up with some way or some system of play for the players they have. So, they'll be hard beaten, but Kildangan, they'll be really looking to get a win here because, they're not used to getting beaten, and the manner in which they were beaten by Nina, they'll be very sore over that. So I'd expect them to have a kick in them and, maybe get over by 3 or 4 points for finish.
Okay, we'll go through the Premier Intermediate probably a bit more swiftly. Newport are against St. Mary's. Sean Tracy's are against Burgess. That's in Group 1, Shane. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an open. It's a very open Premier Intermediate Championship. Like Sean Tracy or St. Mary's got to the final or semi-final last year. Newport 2 years ago. Burgess and Sean Tracy's were both in relegation last year. So Newport weren't great in the North against Roscrea when they lost by 7 points. They were probably under a bit of pressure. Conor O'Mahony has retired. Sean O'Brien is not around this year. Their two talisman or experienced heads, former county men. So I'd like to think probably St. Mary's probably would be maybe favourites to edge that one. And I think Tracy's beat Burgess in the relegation playoff last year. So, and I think Tracy's been in the last 2 relegation playoffs. So I think they want to make sure they're not in it this year, maybe. But then Burgess lost the North semi-final and they were very depleted. Like, I think they might have Stephen Murray back this week. Michael Ryan will be back, so they'll be stronger. So, like a lot of these games in the Premier Intermediate, they're very tight. So, maybe St. Mary's then and Sean Tracy's maybe to start it off.
Yeah, would you agree, Dennis?
Yeah, it is so hard to call with these because you don't know what teams have been putting out in the leagues and up to now, and even their divisional championships. So they're hard games to call. But I know Newport have been under new management there and they've been going nicely. Tracy's again across them in the intermediate championship previously, and they're never easily beaten, and they have great heart and determination up there. So all those teams will have a cut, and they'll be looking. The first winning the first day out is really, really so important if you can at all, or get something out of the result.
Yeah, and Group 2, Moyne Tubby against Silvermines, bit of county quality in there, Dennis, and Roscrea against Kildangan B.
Yeah, Roscrea against Kildangan B. I suppose you'd have to call Roscrea there all day long because Kildangan now are eating into their senior B team, and that's going to affect them down the line. So I
think they lost 2 more players in the North final. I think Owen Sharkey came on at the very end. Maybe it was a blood sub or something. I thought it was a strange move to bring him on so late, but they've lost an awful lot of players to that senior B team.
Yeah, so they're going to find it hard to be competitive at this. And Roscrea have been moving nicely. They'll be disappointed with the North final result, but yet they're thereabouts. They'll be one of the favourites for this championship, I reckon. And the other side then, Moyne Tubby and Silvermines, again a right cracker of a game in store there, I would say. Moyne Tubby, maybe they're down a couple of players. I know they'll be really depending on if Garrod O'Connor is back fit. They took a bad beating in the mid-final to Kilkenny, so they'll be hoping he's back fit. If not, they'll be under a bit of pressure. And Silvermines the same way. They haven't shown much yet this year. I know there's John Brennan Nina is training them there. Sean Quirk is involved, so they have a good setup. But this one is tight. Maybe I'd give a sneaking nod to Silvermines in this one. But it's hard.
Yeah, no, I think at full strength I would have fancied Moyne Tubby, but I think they were missing 7 of the team that won the intermediate last year when they lost to Kilkenny, and then Garrod O'Connor breaks down after about 15 minutes. So I actually thought Moyne Tubby would be in a chance of winning the whole thing out of that, bringing that momentum from last year. But obviously injuries and maybe a couple of guys not being around is not helping. And look, I thought at the start of the championship, Silvermines were a little vulnerable, but I just think the performance against Kildangan and then even in losing an extra time to Ross Gray, and it looks like Jason Ford is playing to a very, very high level. I just think he scored 119 in 2 games so far. I think if it looks like Silvermines, look, if you have a player like that who can score like that, why don't you build a team around him? And it looks like Silvermines are doing it. And I just the fact that if Mind Temple are a bit depleted, I think Silvermines might just shade this one.
Yeah. Group 3 then, Killinall against Gertnahoe Glengool and Thurles Sarsfields B against Ballina, Shane.
Yeah, Killinall, last year's losing finalists. I suppose every year Killinall will always be tipped up to be one of the teams to win it. And look, they have to be up there. I think a lot of eyes will be on John O'Dwyer, and look, he's had no Tipp campaign this year. How is he going to go for the club? And look, I think they'll get to the knockout stages again. I think they'll go close. Gertnahoe had a good campaign last year, got to the quarterfinals. I think Cian Hayes missed a lot of last year's campaign, so he's back and he'll be fit. So I still fancy Killinall in that one. The other game in the group, Sarsfields against Ballina. Look, Sarsfields always strong out the gate. Generally, they don't lose too many to their senior teams. I think their senior team always pulls about 19 or 20 out the gate, and they're okay. So there'll be, but I suppose that they lost comprehensively to Mind Temple Toohey, and then Mind Temple Toohey lost comprehensively to Clonakilkenny. Maybe it's not the strongest Sarsfields team maybe they've had in recent years. And look, I think it's a big year for Ballina. I think there's an awful lot of talent there. Okay, they might be down Stephen O'Brien in the early rounds, but there's an awful lot of good ball players in Ballina. I think this is a great chance if they get a win here, get up to speed. I think Ballina could. I just think of the momentum. I think the last year's good football run, they developed a great camaraderie within the club and a bit of team spirit, and you'd like to think that it would feed off into their intermediate or this hurling team, and maybe they might shade this one.
And then Group 4, Carrick Swans, who won the South against Portrue, and Cashel King Cormacs against Clonakilkenny, who've obviously had a good year, Dennis.
Yeah, Clonakilkenny and Cashel, they'll be no strangers. I think Cashel just about Clonakilkenny at the very last at the post last year, so that'll be a really good game. And Cashel have won their division as well. So both, I think all 4 teams in this group have won their division. So it's. I suppose pressure is off them in a way, but you still don't want to get dragged into the relegation zone. So you'll be looking to get at least a win under your belt. So Clonakilkenny, they're a team that have great heart too, and they're hard to beat. And Paddy Burke from Templemore is over them this year with Shane Scully, and they're doing a good job there. And they'll be driven on by that big win over Mind Temple too, because they're fierce rivals out there. And then you have serious quality on the Cashel team as well, and you'd be probably thinking they'll stitch a bit of form together this year. They're getting a full year together, and the ex Knockavilla boys are settling in and that. So you probably think they might have a little bit too much quality for Clonakilkenny in that one, but there won't be much in it. And the other side of it, then Swans, they've won their division, beaten Mullinahone, so that was a big win for them. I'd say sometimes they throw everything into their division and then maybe fall short when they come to the county championship. So this year, I suppose they'll be looking to build on that. And Port, again, are never easy play against. And, they have some nice young players coming through too. And you'd never back against them. And I'd probably give it a slight nod to Port in this one.
Yeah, this is a ridiculously open group, this one. Like you say, all 4 of them will get a knockout game. But then you don't want to be the team that finishes bottom, and if you don't win the county championship, you're potentially you're a divisional champion that could end up being relegated. It's just a ridiculously open championship. It's like you could give maybe apart from Kildangan's second team, I think any of the other, I could be proven wrong, but I think you could give any claims any other the 15 maybe to go and win it out if they get on a run. And you say that you think after beating Mullinahone, a Dan Breen team, you think the Swan have to be in towards the favourites, and it's all about them being consistent from here on now. And but they'll get a severe test off Portrue this weekend. Portrue will get an awful lot from winning that North Premier Intermediate, beating a very good Ross Gray team. So and then you say last year I saw Clonakilkenny play last year when they beat Newport, and I was very impressed with them. And I I think much like Toomevara against Mullinahone, I think Clonakilty will be stung by the fact that they were the better team for a long stages against Cahill last year, and maybe just fell short at the end. I wouldn't be surprised if Clonakilty beat them, got a bit of revenge on the weekend against Cahill.
Yeah, I'll read out the 8 fixtures from the 4 groups of the intermediate then, and you can sort of pick up any games that are of particular interest. So in Group 1, Ballybacon Granger against Kappa White, and also Ballingarry against Moneygall. In Group 2, Knockavilla Kickhams are against Ballynahinch, and also Burskane against Kahina Rinky. Group 3 sees Shannon Rovers against Kilsheal and Kilcash, along with Arravale Rovers against Drummond Inch, the second team. And then Group 4 is Golden Kilfeacle against Borlahan Douala and Carrick Davins against Loradura, Shane, which will start with Loradura, your own.
I have to say very little, but I have to say very little because I could get in trouble. But look, I suppose I'm involved with Laura this year, and look, we had a nice win in the North Final last week again against Shannon Rovers. Look, we won't hide, we probably will be among the favourites, but look, there's some good teams there. Look, Kilsheal and Kilcash very unlucky not to win the final last year. Look, if they put their best 15 players on the field, and like they've won a South Championship this year without I think Bill Maher only came off the bench. I think Paul Maher missed a lot of the first half of the season after injury. He's only going to get better. Like Mark Keogh, probably at intermediate level, you think if he gets a lot of service, he could score anything in matches. I think they'll be good. I think Borlahan are getting better as the year, as they're a young team, but they have more an upside. Golden with Jack Lehman. Look, I think it's another championship where a lot of the groups are very even. I suppose I won't say too much more than that because I just don't want to say I'm writing off clubs, but maybe I'll let Dennis do the rest of the talking from here.
Go for it, Dennis.
Never there, Shay. You don't want to give any ammunition. Look, there's a few lovely games there. Definitely, Laura have to be favourites. You know, and they were probably went down last year. I'd say he had injuries again and different things went on. You know, but I'd say you have to be favourites for that match. You'd be expect Laura to get over. I think the Rovers Kilsheal match is a nice one there. Again, Kilsheal will be favourites for that. But you know, Rovers, you know, they gave a nice bit of a performance there throughout the North Championship. Probably not good enough in the North Final, but they put in some nice performances. And
Ballingarry Moneygall is probably the game this weekend. You think they met in a quarter final last year, and I think depending on who wins it, maybe whoever wins or loses maybe gets a great bit of kickstart. Maybe the loser is under pressure then. So I think that for me, maybe of all the games, maybe is the interesting one.
Yeah, both suffered defeats in their divisions, and heavy defeats, I think. So you know they'll be really looking to get the show back on the road, both clubs, and that is an interesting one. You know, if Moneygall got the Fogarty's back, they'd probably be, and young Kennelly, they'd be a better force as well, and you'd expect probably just to get over the line in that one. But it's a really competitive championship again. That's the good thing about all these championships. It's very hard to call. You know, I suppose you have one or two standout teams, but you know the rest is very, very even, and anyone could come out of the pack. Even
look at I say Kickham's like still win a West Championship 2 years after maybe the heartbeat of their team. 4 very talented players are not there anymore. It just shows you that the spirit there is and the talent that's down there. And like next year they'll have Owen Horgan and Adam Daly to call on. So they're a remarkable club for the amount of intercounty quality of player that comes through that club. I'm always thinking, how are they not hurling at a higher level? But the amount of underage talent they always throw into Tipperary squads after year. It's nearly every year. It's incredible. Like so.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's it from this week's episode of Tippcast. We'll be back again next week, as we always are. My thanks to Dennis Kelly and Shane Brophy. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian. Thanks very much, lads.